In a remote village somewhere in Africa, a man in tattered clothes sits quietly in a wheelchair, hand outstretched to strangers passing by. But what no one knows is that this beggar once owned a fleet of private jets. He walked away from an empire, not to escape it but to search for love, only to discover that the price of truth might be the very thing he came looking for. Some people aren't born to be loved right away. They're born to teach the world how to love, all over again. Malik wasn't searching for someone who would love him because he was rich. He was searching for someone who could love him when he had nothing. But true love isn't cheap. It demands honesty, and sometimes honesty is the hardest gift to give. This is a story about deception, kindness, and a man who had to lose everything to finally become himself. You're listening to Tales of Black. Chapter 1. The Hidden Face of Malik Okoro. If someone could love me when I have nothing, maybe that's the kind of love I've been searching for all along. Johannesburg, a city of towering skyscrapers, sleek supercars slicing through the streets, and people who walk like they've made peace with power and lies. At the very top of the Obsidian Tower, where the sun touches first and leaves last, sat the penthouse of Malik Okoro, the sole heir to the Okoro Group. One of the youngest billionaires on the continent, he was known in the media as the Black Panther. Not for his skin, but for his icy gaze, razor-sharp mind, and the way he hunted billion-dollar deals without blinking. But what no one saw was the man behind the glass walls at night. Malik, sitting alone, staring out over the glittering city, feeling like a ghost wandering a world made of gold and silver, but untouched by real connection. He had everything except one thing: real love. He'd dated women carved like statues, models who could grace the cover of any magazine, polished socialites with sharp nails and sugar-slicked words. But the moment he stopped buying gifts, they disappeared, like perfume in the wind. Once, he tried hiding his identity, met a woman at a roadside diner. She sat down, glanced at his cheap watch, made an excuse, and left within 10 minutes. "No one loves me," he wrote in his journal. "They only love my shadow." One night, after yet another charity gala where he sat like a mannequin among people pretending to laugh, Malik called in his personal assistant. "Clear my schedule for the next 3 months. I'm disappearing." The assistant blinked, alarmed. "Sir, disappearing where?" "To the only place someone might meet me, without knowing who I am." "There's no such place in Johannesburg." "Then I'll go somewhere Johannesburg doesn't exist." Weeks later, a man in a torn sweater, sitting in a wheelchair, appeared on a dusty roadside in the quiet village of Owerri, hundreds of miles from the city's roar. His shoes were frayed at the seams, his face smudged with dirt and sunburn. An old beanie pulled down past his brow. His hand trembled slightly as he held it out for spare change. No one knew the man in that wheelchair once owned a yacht with a private theater. No one guessed that hand, now begging, once signed deals worth more than some national budgets. On his first day, no one noticed him. The second day, an old woman slipped him a banana and walked away without a word. The third day, he almost cried, not from hunger, but because, for the first time in his life, he had become invisible. That night, under a straw-covered awning, Malik sat as the wind sliced through fingers once used to gripping luxury car wheels. He looked up at the star-filled sky. No Wi-Fi, no wine, no spotlight, only truth. If someone could love me in this form, maybe that's the love I've been searching for my whole life. What he didn't know was that the very next day, fate would place someone on his path. A woman with nothing but her heart, and just enough of it to wake a soul that had been sleeping beneath $1 million disguise. Chapter 2. The Girl by the Road. Amara appears. Some people pass by your pain like it's just another stone in the road, but sometimes someone stops, and when they do, everything changes. That morning in Owerri, the sky was a pale gray. like it hadn't fully woken from a long night. No rain, just a cool breeze and the earthy scent of freshly turned soil. The man in the wheelchair, Malik, sat in his usual corner, beneath the shade of 3 old mango trees whose roots cracked the red dirt below. He wore a threadbare coat, head lowered, one hand resting on a rusty wheel, the other slowly extended. Like a silent plea the world had forgotten how to hear. 3 days had passed, and it felt like the world had forgotten him too. No one asked, no one stopped, until she appeared. She walked quietly down the gravel path, arms cradling a basket of fresh carrots, still dusty from the field. A rust-colored scarf wrapped around her head, and her steps were so light it was as if she carried no weight at all. Not even the weight of life. Her name was Amara Nwosu, 22. Born and raised in a land where water was treasured like gold, and love was something learned through calloused hands and quiet sacrifice. She owned nothing extravagant, but her eyes held something the entire world of Malik's wealth had never offered him. Unconditional gentleness. Amara passed him, then suddenly stopped. She turned. Their eyes met. Not with pity, not with fear, not even curiosity. Just a simple, honest question. "Sir, are you okay?" Her voice floated through the cold air like a breeze. Warm, soft, unexpected. Malik looked up, startled by the kindness in her gaze. "I'm just trying to make it through the day," he replied, eyes dropping once more. She looked at him. Really looked. At the torn clothes, the crooked sandals, the trembling hands that looked like they hadn't touched anything warm in a long, long time. She reached into her pocket, where she'd tucked away a few small coins from the morning market. "I don't have much, but please, take this. It's enough for a piece of bread, maybe a bowl of porridge." Malik took the coins, and his hands trembled, not from cold, not from hunger, but because for the first time in his life, someone had given him something without needing to know who he was. Amara smiled, just faintly. "Do you have a place to sleep?" He shook his head. "No, I just arrived yesterday." She stood in silence for a few seconds, then sighed, almost like her heart was having a quiet conversation with itself. "My house is small. It's just me and my father. If it were up to me, I'd invite you in, but I have to ask him first." She turned to go, but her steps slowed. As if something inside her hadn't fully walked away yet, she looked back once more. And in her eyes was something soft, almost reluctant. A flicker of guilt and grace woven together. "If the wind turns cold tonight and you're still sitting here, I'll come back." Malik watched her disappear into the edge of the village market, his heart beating differently. For the first time since he'd become a poor man, and he had no idea that those words, "I'll come back," would open a brand new chapter in the story of his life. Chapter 2. The Girl by the Road. Amara appears. Some people pass by your pain like it's just another stone in the road. But sometimes, someone stops. And when they do, everything changes. That morning in Owerri, the sky was a pale gray, like it hadn't fully woken from a long night. No rain, just a cool breeze and the earthy scent of freshly turned soil. The man in the wheelchair, Malik, sat in his usual corner, beneath the shade of 3 old mango trees whose roots cracked the red dirt below. He wore a threadbare coat, head lowered, one hand resting on a rusty wheel, the other slowly extended. Like a silent plea the world had forgotten how to hear. 3 days had passed, and it felt like the world had forgotten him too. No one asked, no one stopped, until she appeared. She walked quietly down the gravel path, arms cradling a basket of fresh carrots still dusty from the field. A rust-colored scarf wrapped around her head, and her steps were so light it was as if she carried no weight at all. Not even the weight of life. Her name was Amara Nwosu, 22. Born and raised in a land where water was treasured like gold, and love was something learned through calloused hands and quiet sacrifice. She owned nothing extravagant, But her eyes held something the entire world of Malik's wealth had never offered him. Unconditional gentleness. Amara passed him, then suddenly stopped. She turned. Their eyes met. Not with pity, not with fear, not even curiosity. Just a simple, honest question. "Sir, are you okay?" Her voice floated through the cold air like a breeze. Warm, soft, unexpected. Malik looked up, startled by the kindness in her gaze. "I'm just trying to make it through the day," he replied, eyes dropping once more. She looked at him. Really looked. At the torn clothes, the crooked sandals, the trembling hands that looked like they hadn't touched anything warm in a long, long time. She reached into her pocket, where she'd tucked away a few small coins from the morning market. "I don't have much, but please, take this. It's enough for a piece of bread, maybe a bowl of porridge." Malik took the coins, and his hands trembled, not from cold, not from hunger, but because for the first time in his life, someone had given him something without needing to know who he was. Amara smiled, just faintly. "Do you have a place to sleep?" He shook his head. "No, I just arrived yesterday." She stood in silence for a few seconds, then sighed, almost like her heart was having a quiet conversation with itself. "My house is small. It's just me and my father. If it were up to me, I'd invite you in, but I have to ask him first." She turned to go, but her steps slowed, as if something inside her hadn't fully walked away yet. She looked back once more, and in her eyes was something soft, almost reluctant, a flicker of guilt and grace woven together. "If the wind turns cold tonight, and you're still sitting here, I'll come back." Malik watched her disappear into the edge of the village market, his heart beating differently. For the first time since he'd become a poor man, and he had no idea that those words, "I'll come back," would open a brand new chapter in the story of his life. Chapter 3. The Father with a Big Heart. Baba Ez. Some people leave behind wealth. Others leave behind the way they opened their arms to a stranger and called him son. Amara ran home before the sun had fully dipped behind the hills. She crossed the cornfields, hurried past barefoot kids kicking a dried mango as if it were a soccer ball, and stopped in front of the small mud brick house with a thatched roof where she had lived all her life. On the porch, an older man sat washing his feet in a bowl of warm water. His skin was darkened by the sun, his hair flecked with ash-colored grays, but his eyes, they still held the light of someone who had seen many seasons and never lost his softness. That was Baba Ize, Amara's father, a humble farmer whose hands dug into the earth, but whose heart always looked toward the heavens. "Papa," Amara called softly. He looked up, nodding gently. "I met someone today in the village," she began. "A man in a wheelchair. He looked tired, lost. I don't think he has anywhere to go." Baba didn't respond right away. He kept scrubbing his cracked heels in silence, then finally spoke, his voice low and warm, like the coals of a morning fire. "Did you give him anything?" "I did. Just a few coins I earned from the morning market." He set the cloth aside and turned fully to face her. "But he has no place to sleep," she added. "And I want to bring him home." A long silence fell. Amara's heart tightened. He looked at her, deeply. "Are you sure, child?" She nodded. "Yes, he's kind. He didn't beg loudly or ask for much. He just sat there, like he was waiting for a small miracle." Baba sighed, eyes lifting toward the thatched roof now glowing under the golden hue of sunset. "You know, this house has nothing but 2 beds and a bit of maize porridge." "I know," Amara said. "But if we can share, maybe he'll have a reason to live one more day." Baba smiled. "Then go, daughter. Don't let a man freeze to death in the village square when there's still fire in our hearth." Amara ran like the wind, each step carrying the fragile hope that the man she met would still be there. And he was... Malik had dozed off in his chair until he heard the rush of feet and a voice that felt like a second sunrise. "Sir, wake up. My father said yes, come on, we're taking you home." Malik lifted his head. And there she stood, bathed in the honeyed light of dusk, reaching out to a man she barely knew. As if he had always been part of her family, he couldn't speak. He just reached for her hand and let her push the worn-out wheelchair toward a humble house on the horizon. Baba Easy's home was small, mud walls, thatched roof, a bamboo table, a clay hearth with soup gently bubbling. But when Malik crossed that doorway, he felt something he had never found in all the mansions he'd ever owned, a feeling called safety. That night, Baba Easy didn't ask many questions. He simply ladled a bowl of hot soup, set it in front of Malik, and said softly, "This house is small, but our hearts have room." Malik lowered his head, hiding the tear that had slipped down his cheek. As the oil lamp flickered against the earthen walls, he ate in silence. Outside, the wind whispered through banana leaves. Inside, for the first time ever, a wealthy heart dined with people who didn't care who he was, not because of what he had, but because they could see that he needed to be loved. Chapter 4. Quiet Days and the Storm Ahead. Some days pass as softly as breath, no noise, no rush. But behind that peace, a storm quietly gathers. Ever since Malik began living in Baba Ize and Amara's modest clay home, time in the village of Oweri seemed to slow down. There were no car horns, no blinking city lights, no boardroom calls interrupting dinner, only the crow of roosters at dawn, the rhythmic thump of pestles pounding maize at dusk, and nights spent around the fire, swapping stories of old. Malik was no longer Malik. To the villagers, he was simply Obi, the quiet man in the wheelchair, often seen watching children play from behind the fence. He grew used to waking early, helping Amara pick vegetables, listening to Baba's stories of war, and learning to live by heart, not by contract. One afternoon, Amara invited him to the little garden behind the house. She pointed to the eggplants beginning to bloom, eyes shining with quiet pride. "See those? We planted them 3 weeks ago." Malik laughed, his first real laugh since leaving Johannesburg. "Oui," he asked, amused. Amara nodded, her scarf fluttering gently in the breeze. "You're part of this home now, can't you tell?" Malik froze. He had once owned luxury resorts on hilltops, but no one had ever said he was part of anything. At night, they sat together on the porch, listening to the chirping of crickets, drinking ginger water. Malik told her stories about the outside world, carefully altered. He said he used to be a driver, then had an accident that left him unable to walk. Amara listened. No suspicion, no questions, only the quiet listening that comes from the heart. But not far away, something else had begun to stir. Dapo, son of a wealthy trader in town, had once pursued Amara many times. Since the arrival of the wheelchair stranger, she no longer looked his way. He had brought her flowers, pastries, and promises of a life in the city. And still she always smiled and said, "You're a good man, Dapo, but my heart doesn't belong to things that shine." That sentence he never forgot. And now, he couldn't accept that the girl he wanted was smiling at a poor, disabled nobody. Elsewhere, the real storm was forming. Kemi, Amara's childhood best friend, overheard gossip at the market. Someone mentioned that Amara was caring for a crippled man. Kemi scoffed. "She turned down Dapo for a beggar? That's laughable." Once, Kemi and Amara had been inseparable, but jealousy had slowly eaten away at even their sweetest memories. That evening, while Amara was out selling vegetables, Kemi went straight to Baba Easy's house. She stood quietly behind the fence, watching. She saw Malik, calmly reading under the soft glow of the oil lamp. Her eyes narrowed, and a bitter thought curled inside her. A poor man, reading African philosophy? Something wasn't adding up. Back inside, Malik was beginning to feel the weight of his own lie. He was stepping into something real, a real home, a real connection. But all under a false name, a false life. Every time Amara smiled at him, his heart swelled, but also ached. Who does she love? He wondered. The man with nothing, or the man she never really met? One evening, Baba Easy joined him outside under the banana trees. He puffed his pipe, his voice low, gravelly, steady. "Son, some secrets, when kept, can save you. But others will burn your whole house down if you don't speak them in time." Malik sat in silence. The wind began to rise from the edge of the grove. Banana leaves rustled louder than before, as if the trees themselves were whispering a warning. Something was coming. Chapter 5. Jealousy and the Fire of Truth. Jealousy is a fire that needs no spark, just a single glance, and it can burn everything good to the ground. In Owerri, gossip moved faster than the wind. So when a man in a wheelchair, unknown, unnamed, started receiving daily care from Amara, the village's kindest soul, it didn't take much for tongues to ignite. "She's probably falling for a cripple to get attention. Who knows? Maybe he's not poor at all." But two people didn't take those whispers lightly. Dapo, who once believed he would marry Amara, and Kemi, the former best friend who had quietly turned bitter. Dapo grew more restless with each passing day. He couldn't understand how Amara could reject him. A man who had everything for someone who, in his eyes, had nothing. One evening, he cornered her on her way back from the market. "I don't get it," he said, voice trembling with frustration. "What do you see in him? A man with no legs, no name?" Amara paused, her gaze calm, unwavering. "I chose a heart, Dapo, something you never once showed me." That same night, Dapo went to see Kemi, and together, fueled by jealousy and pride, they made a plan to uncover who Obi really was. Meanwhile, Malik felt the pressure rising, not just from within, but from the growing sense that someone was watching him. One night, he heard the soft rustling near the window. When he looked out, a shadow darted past the cornfield. The next morning, Babai's returned from the town with an old newspaper. Page 2 headline, "Billionaire Malik Okoro disappeared without a trace." He stared at the photo. Slightly aged, slightly blurred. But those eyes. He'd seen them before. At the same time, Kemi, after weeks of quietly watching, finally saw it. Malik, hidden in his room, pulled a satellite phone from under the bed. He spoke in fluent English, his tone clipped and commanding. Like a man who ran boardrooms, not farms. Kemi crouched behind a mud wall, heart pounding. "I knew it! He's not who he says he is!" Jealousy twisted into something darker, vengeful. She ran to Dapo's house and spilled everything. "He's not just faking poverty, he's rich. Maybe even dangerous. Who knows? A fugitive, a spy." Dapo didn't need more convincing. He fooled the village. He fooled Amara. She deserves to know the truth. But while Dapo prepared for confrontation, Malik was preparing for confession. That evening, after dinner, while Baba and Amara were in the kitchen washing dishes, Malik sat alone by the fire. He slowly pulled out a handkerchief. Inside, a faded photo of him standing with his parents in front of the Okoro estate. Then came the gold necklace, engraved with his real name, a piece of the life he had left behind. He sighed. "Tomorrow, I'll tell them everything." But fate didn't wait for tomorrow. That very night, flyers appeared on every doorstep in the village. Faker in a wheelchair, the truth about the stranger. Attached, a photo of Malik Okoro, Johannesburg billionaire. The next morning, Amara found one pinned to their front gate. She froze. Inside, Baba Ezi held the same flyer. He said nothing. No blame, no judgment. He simply poured a glass of water and set it in front of Malik. "Is there anything you'd like to say, son?" Malik didn't run, didn't lie. He told them everything, from the life of wealth to the emptiness inside, to the reason he left it all and came to this village. No excuses, no sugarcoating, just the truth. Silence followed. The ceiling fan creaked softly, and the morning wind slipped through the gaps in the wall. Amara turned away. Tears streamed down her face. "Why?" she asked, her voice low and raw. "You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth, or was I just some kind of test?" Malik bowed his head, voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know if anyone could love me, if I didn't bring my fortune with me." Amara shook her head, heart breaking open. "Love you? Or love a dream? I never imagined. The one who made me believe in honesty would be the best liar of all. Chapter 6. Broken Hearts and the Collapse of Trust. When a lie is exposed, it's not just the truth that comes to light. It's the collapse of everything beautiful someone once held in their heart. Inside Baba Iz's home, the air was heavy as stone. By sunrise, the entire village of Owerri was humming with shock. The man they thought was a poor, disabled drifter was actually Malik Okoro, the billionaire who'd vanished from Johannesburg. Malik hadn't left his room all morning. Outside, villagers passed by, pointing, whispering. Some were angry, some felt betrayed. And Amara said nothing at all. She sat beneath the old mango tree in the yard, eyes fixed on the falling leaves, each one drifting down like fragments of a trust that had been shattered. Even the wind couldn't soothe her. Her mind replayed every moment with Malik. Every smile, every shared meal, every glance he gave her family like it meant something. Now it all felt like a dream that had dissolved the second she opened her eyes. Baba Izi didn't scold his daughter, didn't yell at Malik. He simply lit the morning fire like he did every day. But his eyes no longer looked at Malik with warmth. They held something quieter, hurt. That night, Malik stepped out onto the porch. Amara was there, her eyes swollen from tears she refused to show. He sat beside her, not too close, just enough to share the silence. "I know," Malik said, voice breaking. "I don't deserve forgiveness." Amara didn't speak. After a long pause, she whispered, "Do you know what hurt the most?" Malik remained still. "I thought you were the first real thing in my life." The words knocked the breath out of him. He wanted to respond, but nothing came. She stood, gently shaking her head. "You didn't just lie to me. You made me question whether anything we shared was ever real." That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, wide awake with the weight of what he had destroyed. Not just love, but trust. The most precious thing he had ever been given. And he broke it. By morning, Amara was gone. Malik sat up in a daze. Baba Ize saw the look in his eyes and spoke quietly, without anger, only sadness. "She went to the market. She needs time." Malik nodded, then wheeled himself slowly toward the edge of the fields, to the very place where he and Amara once sat in peaceful silence. Now, only the wind passed through, and it sounded like grief. Meanwhile, miles away in the city, a man shouted in a grand marble estate, Malik's father. He had just seen the headlines, and he was furious, not because his son had been missing, but because now, photos of Malik with a village girl were all over the internet. "What does he think he's doing?" he barked. "The Okoro name will not be dragged through the dirt by some peasant girl." That night he gave the order, "Get the car ready. I'm going to Owerri myself." Chapter 7. The Power, the Father, and the First Confrontation. Some fathers don't strike with their hands. They strike with the shadow of their power and let it fall across their children's entire lives. A black armored SUV slithered into the village of Owerri like a foreign beast. Silent, regal. So out of place, even the children paused mid-game to stare. The driver stepped out first and opened the rear door. From within, a man emerged, dressed in a tailored Western agbada, dark sunglasses and a hand-carved rosewood cane gripped tightly in one hand. Chief Bernard Okoro, founder of the Okoro Group, veteran politician, and father of Malik. The villagers didn't know who he was, but they felt it. Because some men don't need an introduction. They simply stand, and the air around them tightens. Chief Bernard didn't come alone. 2 bodyguards in black suits stood at his side, one carrying a locked briefcase. Inside was the solution. He didn't knock on Baba Ize's door. He simply stood at the gate and tapped his cane on the ground 3 times, like thunder before a storm. Malik opened the door. The moment he saw his father, he froze. "Let's go inside," Chief said, not waiting for permission. Malik followed. And in that humble clay house, where 2 worlds collided for the first time, The air grew heavier. Chief Bernard sat on a woven chair, rested his cane beside him, and removed his sunglasses. "You ran away like a coward," he began. Malik's hands clenched on the arms of his wheelchair. "I didn't run. I left. To find myself," Chief scoffed. "Find yourself? What could possibly be more valuable than a billion-dollar empire?" Malik looked up, eyes wet but unblinking. "I didn't need an empire. I needed a place where I could love and be loved without proving I was worth it." Chief Bernard rose, pacing the room like a caged lion. "You think love is enough? You think the Okoro name can afford a scandal over some village girl? Do you have any idea what the media is doing with this story? What I've had to face, investors, rumors, political heat, all because you're chasing authenticity?" Malik didn't flinch. "You never asked me what happiness meant to me. You never saw me as a man, just another pawn in a suit in your political game." Chief paused. The words struck a place he wasn't expecting. The quiet loneliness of a man who always believed he was right. He exhaled slowly, then listened carefully. He opened the briefcase on the table, pulled out a contract, and a check large enough to buy all of Oweri. "I don't need you to come home. I just need her to disappear." Malik's hands balled into fists. "You just walked into the home of the man who's fed me corn porridge every night. The man who sold his only piece of land to help fix the legs of a liar like me. And you think you can buy them?" Chief's voice dropped into a cold whisper. "Everyone has a price." Malik looked him in the eye, and for the first time in his life, his voice didn't shake. "Then today, you'll learn something new. Not everyone needs money to live. Some people survive on dignity." At that moment, Baba Easy stepped out from the kitchen. He said nothing, just stood tall, eyes locked with Chief Bernard's. The look of a man with no title, no wealth, but also no fear. Chief hesitated, because for one fleeting second he realized this man, with nothing but soil on his boots and fire in his spine, was standing taller than him. Chapter 8. When Pride is Threatened and Darkness Descends. Some people can't stand rejection, especially when what's being rejected isn't money, but power. After the confrontation, Chief Bernard Okoro left Baba Ize's house with his 2 bodyguards trailing behind him like shadows. No one said goodbye, no one looked back. In the SUV, he sat quietly, eyes fixed on the banana trees flashing past the tinted window. For the first time in years, he felt something slip beyond his control. Back at his Johannesburg estate, Chief Bernard didn't retreat to his leather throne, didn't summon his advisors, didn't schedule meetings. He simply pulled out his phone, dialed a number only reserved for when things crossed a line. "I want them out of my son's life, all of them. You know what to do?" Meanwhile, in Oweri, daylight gave the illusion of peace. Amara helped harvest beans. Baba Ize tilled the field. Malik sat quietly in the garden, slowly stretching legs that had begun, just barely, to move again, thanks to Amara's quiet care. But beneath the stillness, a storm was building. That evening, Amara returned home late from the market. As she neared the house, she felt it. Someone following her. She paused, no sound. She walked faster. Then, the crunch of leaves behind her. Her heart pounded. No one lived near this path. The house was still too far to call for help. Just as she turned to scream, a hand covered her mouth from behind. The next morning, panic swept through the village. A torn sheet of paper was taped to the gate of Baba Ize's home. "If you don't want your daughter to disappear forever, tell the billionaire's son to leave this place. Consider this your only warning." Malik collapsed to the ground when he read it. Baba Ize's fists clenched. His eyes, usually filled with patience, burned cold. Amara had not come home. Malik grabbed his phone, hands trembling, and called the only person who knew where he'd gone. The only person he trusted with both secrets and war. "Kwame, I need you in the village, now." By late afternoon, he arrived. Kwame, tall, broad, silent. A former Special Forces operative, once Malik's personal bodyguard. now his brother in arms. After hearing what happened, Kwame said just one thing. "This smells like your father." They began the search. By dusk, Kwame tracked strange tire marks to a rundown hut at the edge of the forest. The grass was trampled. Footprints, heavy boots, and silence. Inside the hut, Amara, hands bound, mouth taped, eyes swollen from tears. Malik broke down. He rushed forward, tore through the ropes, whispering apologies between sobs. "This is my fault. I brought you into this war." Amara didn't speak. She just nodded, eyes trembling, her hand tightening around his. She didn't blame him. She was just afraid of losing him. That night, the fire burned low in Baba Isa's kitchen. The four of them sat, Malik, Amara, Baba, and Kwame. No one touched their food. Only one decision was made. They would go to the city, not to flee, but to finish what had begun. Malik raised his head, and this time his voice didn't tremble. "If he wants to fight with power, then I will answer with truth, with light, with the man I've become, not the man he tried to create." Chapter 9. When truth speaks and darkness retreats. Some people are born without a microphone. But when they rise for what's right, the whole world leans in to listen. Malik, Amara, and Baba Isa arrived in Johannesburg just before dawn. Mist clung to the streets like memory. The obsidian tower loomed ahead. Once Malik's home. Now, a monument to his past, fame, wealth, and choices that once fractured his heart. That night, Malik posted a video, just a few minutes long, but it struck the first blow against the silence the media had wrapped around his name. "My name is Malik Okoro, and I spent the last 3 months living as a poor, disabled man in the village of Owerri. Not because I lost my mind, but because I needed to know. If you strip away the money, the status, the empire, what's left of me? And who would still be there?" I found them. A father, who gave me a home, even when it meant selling his land. A girl, who gave me her heart, without ever knowing if I was rich or broke. They are my real family, and if anyone thinks they can silence them with money or fists, know this: I'm not staying silent anymore. Within 24 hours, the video spread like wildfire across the continent. Hashtags flooded the internet. Malik speaks out. Truth over gold. Owerri family. From Lagos to Nairobi to Paris. Malik's name was on everyone's lips. But the shockwave didn't stop there. It came from someone no one expected. Malik's mother. She had always been the quiet shadow behind her husband's spotlight. But this time, she stepped into the light. A soft white scarf draped around her shoulders, her eyes both sorrowful and steady. She spoke into the camera. "I'm sorry. For all the years I stayed silent, while my husband took the voice from our son. I'm sorry to Baba Isa, a man who treated my son like his own blood. I'm sorry to Amara, a girl who gave love without knowing she'd entered a war with an empire. Today, I stand with my son." The nation trembled. Silence could no longer hide behind glass towers or campaign speeches. Journalists camped outside the Okoro estate. Reporters shouted questions at the gate. Inside his office, Chief Bernard Okoro watched it all. He didn't speak. For the first time, he felt truly alone. No advisors, no buzzing phones, no applause. Only one question echoed in the quiet. "What have I won if I've lost my son?" The next day, something unexpected happened. Baba Isa was invited to speak at a university forum titled "The True Value of a Human Being." He wore a clean white buba. A wooden prayer bead bracelet hung from his wrist. He stood in front of scholars, cameras, and curious minds. He began with a single sentence. "I never went to school, but I know this. If someone comes to your house with empty hands, and you still have bread, you share it." That's not morality, that's what's right. The entire auditorium rose in a standing ovation. Malik and Amara became something more than a couple. They became symbols. That love isn't reserved for bloodlines. That family isn't just DNA. And that truth, though buried, will always find light. A few days later, Chief Bernard returned to the Obsidian Tower. Alone. He walked into the lobby and called the front desk. His voice no longer thundered. "I'd like to see my son," he said quietly. Not to speak, but to listen. Chapter 10. Forgiveness and a Real Home. Forgiveness doesn't change the past. It simply opens the door so the future has a place to walk in. Malik sat by the window, eyes on the skyline of a city he once called home. Beside him was Amara, hand in hand, both silent. They had just returned from Owerri after a month of whirlwind change, interviews, hearings, and hundreds of messages from strangers across the continent. "Thank you for speaking up. I am my own Amara. I was once Malik, trapped inside a life I was too afraid to live honestly." That evening, they received an invitation from Chief Bernard Okoro. Location, not the estate, not the office, but a small lakeside cabin. The same one where he used to take Malik fishing when he was 8. Malik went. No bodyguards, no cameras, just a father sitting alone. Older now. Quieter. When Malik arrived, Chief Bernard didn't rise. He simply looked up, pulled a photo from his wallet, a picture of 3 people. Himself, his wife, and a young boy with bright eyes. He placed it on the wooden table. His voice was low, raspy. "I didn't know what you needed. I only knew I was afraid of losing the empire I built with my life. But I forgot. If I lose you, who am I building it for?" Malik said nothing. He just looked at his father. Not with anger, but with a quiet understanding that only comes after the storm. After a moment, Chief Bernard stood up. He walked slowly toward his son. Then, for the first time in his life, he knelt. "Forgive me, not because I deserve it, but because I don't know where to start if I lose you." Tears fell from Malik's eyes. He reached out and helped his father to his feet. "We may not start over from the beginning, but we can start from here." 1 year later, in the village of Owerri, a new house stood, built on the same patch of land Baba Ez once sold. But it wasn't a mansion, and it wasn't an estate. It was a simple 3-room wooden home with redwood walls, a small garden, and a porch where 3 people sat drinking tea each evening. Baba Eze, Malik, and Amara, now husband and wife. A home not built of bricks, but of trust, truth, and second chances. And the lesson for us is, not all poor people are small. Not all rich people stand tall. Not everyone who gives you money loves you. And not everyone with empty hands is unable to give you everything. And if you've made mistakes, don't be afraid to say I'm sorry. Because truth, when spoken from the heart, always has a chance to be heard. Tales of Black, where we tell the stories the world tried to forget. If you've made it this far, leave a comment. I still believe in real love. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, subscribe and share. Because somewhere out there, someone's still waiting for one reason to believe again.